Hey guys, welcome to Highly Unlikely with Josh and Jenaye. We are excited to join in with our guests today, Scott and Jenni Wilson.
We're excited. We love these people so much. And so Scott and Jenni hail from Dallas, Texas, and came all the way to North Dakota.
Nice accent.
Sorry if that was
Thank
offensive.
you.
Yeah, no, that was good.
I did my best.
Oh, I think it's good, you know.
I don't
We're
think
going to carry
that's
your
good
bag
either.
in here and have a wonderful time.
I think that's Minnesota.
It's the same thing.
It carries
very close.
over.
Oh.
So as you can tell, we're going to have fun today.
Yes. Scott and Jenni are recent grandparents.
We
Pretty
are.
Recent, right? Couple grandbabies.
Yes.
Do you wanna,
Best thing ever.
I know you want to talk about
Go,
them.
babe.
So we have 10-month-old Teddy, little boy, and we have a 2-month-old Jonas Lovey, little girl. And we had 3 boys. So to finally get a girl, we're beside ourselves.
Amazing.
I still can't really even believe it when I say granddaughter.
Yeah.
It's bizarre,
That's so
but it's
sweet.
amazing.
So she's Bunny with an eye. I'm Poppy with an eye.
Oh, man.
Do they call you Bun and Pop too? Or is it just
Well, no
Bunny
one
and
can
Poppy?
say anything yet.
No, and the boys like to
okay.
aggravate
They
me and
say,
say that
"Hey,
and then they like to aggravate me
that.
and say that they're going to teach the kids to call me grandmother or something really boring like that. I'm like, whatever.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Cool.
they just
I mean,
like to aggravate
we
me.
love your boys. They're amazing. Dylan played
Thank
college
you.
football, creates clothing, married to Holly.
Yeah.
Hunter, I can't remember his wife's name.
Emily.
Emily. And their little boy Hunter helps you guys with RSG and everything
Yep.
that you're building
He's
with
brilliant.
Pastors.
He's doing great,
Brilliant. And Dakota's got sweet music on
Oh,
Spotify.
he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And he's got nice hair. He's got really
And
long
nice,
hair.
does have
long flowing hair.
It's sometimes I'll walk up and go, "Hey, babe." Oh, hi, bud. Because they have similar hair.
Oh, that is too funny.
true.
Well, we're going to start with our question of the day.
Okay.
Draw from the dish.
Where is your favorite place to shop?
This is going to be a funny question for Scott. What are you going to say, Scott?
I
already know what I
love-
would say.
100% my favorite place to shop is wherever she is.
Oh.
Because I've never bought anything in my whole life except for where she is.
Serious?
Pretty much. What
You've
what,
never
What
bought
do I
anything?
have on my body right now that I've bought?
nothing.
Nothing, including my drawers. You buy them.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, on a more real answer, I would probably say anthropology.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that. Probably.
Okay, Lululemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have been in there. Yeah, you've been in
like
there.
that.
Yeah,
I went
that's
to
good.
Lulu.
Yeah.
And you all need to know, especially if you're on audio right
Yeah.
now and you can't see what's happening in the room, people need to know that Jenni has one of the strongest shoe games
She does.
She
that
does.
you'll ever
I do like
see in
shoes.
your life.
I do like shoes.
Well, even if you see my shoes, they're her game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's true.
yeah.
They're exceptional.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Did you know that she went to a store yesterday? No lie, here in Bismarck. She went to the store and she had like 6 ladies stop her and ask her about her fit. Asked, "Where did you get
My
those shoes?"
fit.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that's how the kids are saying it.
Wow.
They wanted to
taught
ask
you
you about your
that?
fit, and
Wow.
people were asking her, and we're going on their phone. What website did you get that from?
Oh my
Isn't that-
goodness.
I
Isn't
know.
that
It was
crazy?
Funny. Yeah, it was funny.
That's awesome. Well, and I would say the store you were at probably would be the favorite place we like to shop is
Yeah.
Shields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
People
so
around
impressive.
here will know what
I'd
that is.
never been in one.
Yeah.
And then I found out a flagship store was in Dallas where they have a Ferris wheel and all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Nice.
So
Yep.
we're going.
Yep. There's one like that in Fargo too.
She got me a hat. I like
That one?
that.
No, not
no,
that
not
one.
this one. This is our white rhino. This is our
realize
coffee shop
that once
hat.
I saw it.
No, but she got a hat from the store because she's bought so much stuff.
That's true. I did.
Oh,
They
like
said, here,
you-
you can pick a hat. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
That was a good
Executive
little
level.
prize. Yeah, it was a good prize.
That's awesome.
So
Well,
great.
we want to talk a little bit about, you guys are awesome parents, grandparents, and so we want to pick your brains a little bit
Okay.
on like your relationships with your adult children, but also kind of your MO and life calling, which is, pastoring for a couple decades, but then really building spiritual children, being spiritual fathers and mothers. So those are kind of the 2 main things we're going to hit today. And let's actually start. I know we have littles that are running around, but
They're
we
so
often,
cute.
well, thanks.
I got to meet them for the first time yesterday.
yes.
So that was amazing.
You have
Scott had gotten to
amazing
before.
kids. You know what I loved about them today is when we were talking to how they actually kind of remembered me and were hugging
I
me.
know. It was so cute.
It was awesome. I loved it. And they were saying bye.
I know.
You know,
So sweet.
They're
Dancing.
sweet.
all the things.
But we make lists sometimes of when our kids are adults, here's how we want to treat them. Here's what we want our relationship with them to be like. And I know you guys you've told stories of great things you've been through with your kids, hard things you've been through with your kids. And so do you have any like keys to success of having great relationships with your adult children once they're out of the home? How do you keep the door open? How do you keep the family bond going?
This is a great question, babe. This is kind of like your sweet spot.
Well, I was going to say a hard thing about having adult children is it's very hard to, I was super involved with all their stuff.
Yeah.
I was their room mom. When they were really little at school. I was the football what was all that? All their T-shirts and all that stuff. Like worked up at the high school, did all that stuff in high school.
I was going to see like team mom, but basically when they were at high school, you ran the
merch stuff, the merch trailer and all that stuff. Yeah,
huge.
So, volunteered and did all that stuff, was so involved with them. And then all of a sudden they become adults and you're not supposed to be buttoning their business every 5 seconds as well, of course. So I think that's been a challenging thing as a mom. And then we all are together all the time, which is amazing. But then it's like every time you see one little thing, it's very hard to switch that off your brain of like, oh, yeah, I'm not supposed to be saying, hey, why are you doing that? So that is hard because as a mom, when they're little kids, that's your job to correct that stuff and, steer them in the right direction. As adults, you have to be careful when you're offering unwanted advice.
Yeah. And why don't you talk to them about how sometimes early on in that transition, they would call you the dream killer and what that means. And
Hunter got up once, my middle son got up and gave a talk about how he and I, but really Dylan and Hunter both, and they named me the dream killer. Which was so,
Sweetie, I've never
funny.
Called you that. I think you're a wonderful dream lifter.
Yeah. No, it was kind of funny. It was kind of not. It kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And and they kind of were poking at me, trying to get me to quit what they were talking about. So what they were talking about is they would have a new idea for some cool thing that they wanted to do, and they were super passionate about it. And this is while they're in their 20s, like mid-20s, even early 20s probably. They would come tell me the idea, and immediately the way I think is I'm thinking about, have you thought through this? Have you thought through this? But what about this? But what about that? And it's every risk that I'm seeing that could potentially happen. And while all those risks were probably and concerns were valid, that really wasn't what they were wanting from me right then. They were really wanting me to just be excited about this cool idea, and then we could go through the hard parts later and just be excited.
Yep.
So Hunter got up and, we would butt heads on stuff, and then I'd get upset because I'm thinking, why'd you ask me? This is what I do, is help you think through things so that you don't fall into this thing or fall into that, whatever. And so it was a real deal of when they went to their counselor, and the counselor helped them realize you need to be going to your dad first and let him dream with you and do all this stuff, because everything you're wanting from your mom just needs to come later down the road. Like once you've already gotten to the excited part, now I need you to go through the details with me, because that was kind of my strong suit and his was not. Our strong suits are opposite of each other. He could just dream away, while over here I'm almost like twitching in the chair. Like, what do you mean you can't?
You'll lose all your money. You're going to ruin your life. You can't do it. Yeah. But I think what was great is to understand our gifts that we bring to the table and know the timing of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a time that you want people to be excited with you. There's also a time you want somebody to brainstorm to help you to make sure you don't fall into holes and trip up on things. And she's great at that. So sometimes you got to do that. One of the things that I try to do with the boys, especially, this is an interesting deal, is I'm excited that my kids in many ways work with me in different fashion, different places. And so a lot of times it can get confusing. Are we talking right now boss and employee, or are we talking dad and son? What is that? And in fact, talk about it being even more complicated. when they worked with other people on our staff and they weren't working directly with me, but I'm the boss of their boss, then it's like, are you trying to come tell me something so I can handle it with your boss, like this? So then we had 3 hats, and that is, no, I won't talk to you about that, but now I don't have my strongest advisor in my life. So what we do is we actually have, not like real hats, Jenaye didn't want you to think like, oh, they made hats, Dad. But we go, hey, what hat am I wearing right now? What hat are you wearing? Because it can even be as I think I'm wearing a dad hat, but they're thinking I'm wearing a boss hat.
Yeah.
Or even worse to me is I got a boss hat on, they got a son hat on, and then they're like telling me, but I don't want to do that. And I said, what does that have to do with me? I'm your boss. You're going to do what I tell you, like that thing, And so we have to talk that way sometimes. So we have to clarify what role are we in right now in order to have those conversations. So that's a big deal too.
Yeah.
I think that having adult kids, it's funny, every season we go like, my gosh, this season's so hard. Man, I can't wait to get out of this season and get into this season. And yet we look back and I don't know that any of them have been easier or harder. They have been equally challenging and exciting and fulfilling in each time. But each time and each season has challenges of its own. Right now, we don't just have wonderful sons, but we have 2 wonderful daughter-in-laws that we love. But the whole relationship of now them creating their own family and their own kids, and now they have in-laws, and navigating all of that and trying to be sensitive to the other side of the family and ours. I mean, it just becomes complex. And so part of that is we go to counseling. I talk about it. Anybody who talks to me for more than 5 minutes is going to hear us say counseling. Yeah. Because one of the things we do in counseling is we're talking about what are our boundaries, what do we need to have as expectations, how do we talk, how do we handle this? I got my feelings hurt, or all of that, and trying to do that. The other thing is getting our kids into counseling. I remember Hunter saying, man, I wish I started counseling when I got in college. I wish I would have done it when I was in high school. And I said, why? He said, because I had so many times, I was struggling psychologically and emotionally, and I think I would have been able to handle it better if I had that tool. So I think
an outside
perspective. And so I'm not my kid's counselor. I'm their dad. That's a different role than counselor. And so that's why part of what I can do as a dad is help them to find a counselor, or even help them financially to have the counselor if they go.
Well, it was like our counselor said to us sometime, anybody can be their counselor, only you can be their dad.
Yeah.
And so only I can be their mom. And I've tried to be both, thinking, I can. And there is some form of that. Of course, you're going to give them advice and do all that. But being their deep dive counselor, like, I'm not counseling them with a marriage issue.
Especially
I'm not
since they're probably going to counseling about us.
Well, sure about that. But I'm saying I'm not getting in the middle of that. Like if they're having a marriage, I mean, of course, they wouldn't ask me anyway, but they need a counselor.
So demystify counseling a little bit, because I know some people listening think, I don't have an issue big enough for counseling, you know?
Yeah, so it's funny because that's kind of how I felt growing up. And my dad being a pastor, his dad being a pastor, my mom's dad being a pastor. In our home, it was kind of like if you went to counseling, you didn't have enough Holy Ghost. You didn't have enough spiritual life. You need to just pray more, read the Bible more. What's wrong with you? Or that's for people if they lost a loved one, or that's for people who are having mental problems,
like
or whatever.
Tragedies
stigma.
Or something. Like
tragedy.
Tragedies.
Like, a trauma or a tragedy, then you go because you're in crisis.
Sense, yeah.
Totally true on all that, by the way.
Right.
But I found what happened is I was having panic attacks. Okay, so let's just get real. I'm a pastor and I was having panic attacks. You know why I was having panic attacks? Because I had troubles on Sundays. And it's hard when you're scared of Sundays to be a pastor. And people are going, what do you mean you're scared of Sundays? I mean, I started going like, if I don't preach good this week, people aren't going to get saved. If I don't do good ministering this week, then it's going to be on me that people are going to come. And their friend came and says, Mom, I'm about to cry. Because people would call me and say, please be good this week because my neighbor's coming. And I would be like, oh God, man. And so I was having panic attacks.
You're probably in your early 30s.
Yeah, and I went. So Jenni goes, "You got to go to counselor." I said, "I ain't gonna go to counselor." It took her like 3 years to get me. Right?
3 years of some hefty conversations. Yeah.
See, that's pretty. I started at the same season, and somebody told Jenaye, "You can't fix him. Like he has to go." And it was the same, except I was getting up to preach, thinking, "I don't want to do this. I don't like this anymore." And it's like my passion. Yeah. And I was like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
So it started with a crisis for me, but here's what happened. Can I just tell you about my first deal? It's pretty cool. I went in and I told the counselor, I'd never met him before. So I wanted to get a killer counselor that happened to be a Christian. In other words, I didn't want just a Christian counselor who's going to give me scriptures. I got that. And so I went and talked to him and I said, hey, I'm having troubles because he goes, wow, that must be hard doing ministry without God. Feeling like it's all on you. I said, that's funny. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Well, it sounds like you're saying that. People don't get saved unless you do it good. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, I bet you get in the car after service every time you preach and you turn to Jenni and say, hey, how did I do this week? Did I get a 8, 7, 10, 1 to 10? I said, that's not true. Sometimes we don't ride together.
Because I absolutely
Because I did it every single week. I asked her.
Yeah.
He said, you know what's sad is when you start having to keep score differently than heaven. Maybe it'd be cool if you just got on the same page with God. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, what's the supreme value of heaven? I said, love. He said, really? How do you know that? And I said, well, 1 Corinthians 13 says you can have the wisdom of everybody. You can speak and prophesy, which is preaching. You can give your body to the flame, be a martyr. You give all your money. You can do all these ministry things, but if you don't have love, it means nothing. He said, that's very interesting that you're saying that. So love is supreme value, but you're talking about your preaching and how you did. I bet you anything, what you should do is right when you get done, turn to Jenni and say, how well did I love? Instead of how well did I do? And he said, because guess what? People don't even remember what you say as much as they remember what they felt like when you said it. Then he looked at me. I have tears coming down my face. I'm crying. He reached over and just touched my hand. He goes, and you know what I know about you, Scott? And I said, what? He says, just in 30 minutes, I know every week you'd get a 10.
Right.
Now, I walked to my car crying so hard and so touched. I thought, why am I not growing with a counselor on a regular basis? How many other things do I have in my life that's holding me back from full potential?
That was such a moment, an aha moment.
It was.
To do.
And so then I said to Jenni, I said, not only am I going to go to counseling, I'm going to go from now on and make it, instead of it being a crisis deal, it was part of my growth team. So when I say growth team, I've got consultants on my team. I got a trainer, I've got people who help me with my finances. I got people who help me in leadership development, a medical doctor, all of that. Why wouldn't I want to have somebody who's helping me to process the growth issues of my life with my family of origin stuff, with my insecurities, with conflict I'm having with people?
Yeah.
And what about this? If you're a caregiver, you better have a caregiver, because all of the residue of all the people telling you about the crisis in their life and stuff, that residue's on you. So I use that to kind of clean that off to live.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of getting into the spiritual fathering stuff and mothering stuff, because you talk about a growth team. And I know I was one of those people that was like, New Year's resolutions, yay, I'm going to do all these new things this year. And you guys have really championed, like, no, get a team of people around you that are going to support you in the areas that you want to grow, and then assess, and then look at your life and say, hey, where am I in the red? Where am I in the yellow? Where am I in the green? Like, where am I growing? But get a team of people around you and actually grow and go after those goals. So I know counseling is a component of that, but there's also emotionally growing, physically growing, spiritually growing. So let's talk. Do you have anything you want to ask? Okay, let's talk about kind of your life calling and life message of being spiritual parents. And I think maybe it would be great for you to share just the story of the dream with your dad.
Yeah.
To start.
Yeah, so what's interesting, I don't know if I've told you this part before, the dream is that I was in a real kind of depressed time even. I mean, dude, I don't know if everybody else did. I got all kinds of anxiety. I got all kinds of insecurity, anxiety, worry, fear. I mean, I think just my family of origin growing up, there was so much fear stuff in our home. And anyway, I was struggling with, God, I feel like you've got a big calling on my life, but why won't you tell me what it is? And I feel so frustrated because I feel like you've got something big, but you won't tell me what it is. So I'd been in a process of praying. And then one night, in the middle of the night, I had this dream. And in the dream, I was preaching to this huge crowd outdoor, like you would see a Billy Graham crusade or something like that, like huge crowd outside on this elevated platform. There's a wooden podium in front of me. And people could see me from my waist up, like preaching behind the pulpit, but they couldn't see me from the waist down. And in the dream, I looked down and there was a cutout hole in the platform. And my dad was standing in that hole and I was standing on his shoulders. His hands were around my ankles, his eyes closed, tears coming down, praying for me in the dream. And the Lord spoke to me and said, to everybody else, it looks like you're standing on a platform you built for yourself. But in truth, you're standing on the shoulders of your father. And when I woke up, I said, okay, I'm going to tell my dad thank you tomorrow. But besides that, why are you telling me this? And the Lord said, because, son, your calling, your life and ministry will be defined not by the stages you preach from, but by those who stand on your shoulders. And the Lord at that moment defined the life calling for me and Jenni in that, and that was that we were going to give our lives to help other people win. Up until that time, I hate to say this, it is so ugly and embarrassing, but I just try every time I can to be vulnerable and open about things and be real.
Yeah.
But I had an attitude where I looked at that time we were youth pastoring, and I looked to the youth sometimes as if they were supposed to help me accomplish my vision. I looked at them as machinery to get me a win. So I'd be like, man, if you kids would do better, we could grow this youth group. You won't invite anybody. You won't get anybody saved. I'm discipling how to do this stuff. You won't do it. If you do it, we could grow this thing, and I could write a book, and people would have me come speak at youth conventions, And the truth of the matter, God was dealing with me in that and saying, this is not going to be defined by how big your ministry is. It's going to be by those that you help on your shoulders to get a spiritual inheritance to move forward in that way. And to be honest, all of that is what God had to do dramatically to get my attention. Yeah. While this girl over here, this is what flows from her and oozes from her. The mothering, the loving, the caring about people. Besides the Holy Spirit, she's the number one influencer of helping me in my life, growing and becoming a person of love.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
So you guys pastored a church for 20 years.
Yeah.
Decided at about 50 years old, around that time, that you're going to step out of that, have a successor come in. You're going to start being spiritual mother and father to other pastors. And so, Pastor Scott, I know that transition for you, you moved out of one seat into a different seat of kind of starting an organization. But Jenni, I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about like what that transition was like for you.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time, like, oh, how was the transition for you? And, for Chris and Kara that came, they were leaving all their family on both sides. We're in Springfield. Their boys were having to leave. They had 2 in high school, 1 in junior high at the time when they came, and it was during COVID. So it was just so crazy, because of course the process had already been in the plan, and then COVID happened. So we were announcing the transition during COVID through video stuff. I mean, it was never in the way we thought, but you know what? It worked out. It was totally fine. So Chris and Kara came down. So I think of the 4 of us, of me and Scott and Chris and Kara, it was the easiest transition for me because I was never on the stage. Yeah. So I've always been a behind the scenes person helping do stuff. So now it's moving over to a different area and helping behind the scenes. I've worked in different departments of the church helping do stuff. So I think for me, it wasn't like, for Scott, he's not preaching on Sundays anymore. It's the obvious transition for him that was so crazy. For Chris and Kara, they're coming in with us still there. They're moving their kids in high school. They're leaving family. I got to, stay at my same church we've been at forever, still be there every Sunday that we're not out speaking somewhere, and move over and help in a different way of something that we're super passionate about too. So,
don't you think that probably your biggest issue wasn't about what was affecting you directly, but the indirect impact of what was happening in me and what was going on and kind of helping me emotionally in that?
Yeah. I was way more stressed out of you being okay than I was for me. Because for me, my identity wasn't in really being yes, I was a pastor's wife and I loved that, but I just wasn't on stage doing that,
Can I tell you the number one exciting thing for Jenni in life? It's not whether the church, I'm not downplaying, like she would love the church to grow. She wants people to get saved. She wants all that. But can I tell you, at the end of the day, she wants to know, whatever we do, are you going to be nice when you get home? Are you going to be loving? Are you going to be happy with the kids? Are we going to be able to not be stressed out? Does this mean you're not going to be concerned every moment of the week of how you're going to do preaching that week?
Does this mean when we go out with
together?
our friends on Friday night, you're going to be paying attention and be nice and not be thinking the whole time, I got to go home and study? I'm already tired thinking about the weekend.
So her whole thing is, does this help us have a happier life or not?
Yeah.
And I think in it, let me tell you this. These are the greatest days of our life. Not because the other times weren't good, but because right now, like never before, like the most ever, she and I are working hand in hand together, side by side, ministering to couples, the behind the scenes of what we do with pastors. She's thriving in it. Everything she says is gold. She's brilliant. She's loving. She's helping. And us doing it side by side is the most fun ever.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, tell us about it. So you built RSG University, 415 leaders,
so many things,
all these different
so
pieces.
many letters, so many things.
I know, so many acronyms.
I know.
But why don't you talk about just building that out and now what you guys are doing? Because there's already in the first year or two, you're seeing tremendous things happen. So I'd love for people to hear about it.
Okay, so what happened is we went to a conference. This is how it even came back. We were at a conference, a CMN conference, the Church Multiplication Network, and God put it on our heart that we were to start planting 50 churches a year. Go, my word, how do you do that? And I was going, I can't do that. That's like a denomination. That's a network. That's something like that. And that's not a family. That's a machine. And that's when the Lord said, well, don't focus on raising up church planters, raise up fathers and mothers. And if you do that, they'll birth those. They'll raise them up. They'll support them. And so we began to focus on that. We called it 415 because 1 Corinthians 4:15, Paul writes and says, hey, you got all kinds of teachers, all kinds of people who can preach, all kind of content is what he's saying, but not many fathers. There's a lot of stuff people can learn, but people need more than a cool course or content. They need somebody who's in their life as a father and a mother. And so we said, instead of just being a father and mother, which we will be, but what if we could help people become fathers and mothers and learn and grow? Because it's hard to be something you've never had. If you've never received that, if you've never walked in that way, then how do you develop it? So to do that. So we set out to do that. Then we found that some of the people we were working with, they were incredible mom and dads and ready to go, but their churches weren't ready to multiply yet. And so they were ready as a couple in heart, but not in their systems and structures and staffing and all of the stuff of the church. So then we started Ready, Set, Grow. And that's RSG. Ready, Set, Grow is the organization we have that we work 3 years for the church and pastors to get ready. So their churches are ready, they get ready, and then they take on church planters and multiply into them. And the great thing about it is then church planters turn around 3 years in and they work with other church planters. And so everybody gets a chance to grow while helping other people grow. And we're in a family. It's the most amazing thing, And one of the great things about that is how Jenni is so good at hospitality, so good at building and creating atmospheres to do that. And I love that about her.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to piggyback off of that because that's something I've seen in Jenni, that you definitely have a gift of hospitality, which I feel like plays into us talking about fathering and mothering because it's really how you make someone feel, not about what you do. So when you're preparing to host someone, or even if it's, an electrician or someone is within your home, or we're at retreat for, 415 or anything, how do you view hospitality? How do you allow the Lord to use you in that way to touch other people, to minister to them, or just love on them?
I think that we've traveled around enough. Scott's traveled a lot more than I have, but even just thinking about how did we feel when we were somewhere? How does, I don't know, somehow I just think that's what I tend to see is the person who's not just up on stage, but the person who's sitting down, or the person who doesn't feel welcome, and how are you going to make them feel included? So I always just try to think about that, like thinking about who all is going to be here. You can't just assume everybody wants to do the same thing. So you've got to pick activities that aren't going to be embarrassing to some, or some people will be in their sweet spot. Because what I would want to do in a crowd and what he would do in a crowd, there's nothing he wouldn't do in a crowd. But I don't necessarily want to do that in a crowd.
What's so funny is that the first 415 deal we had, I wrote on there being funny. I said, hey, we got to bring your swimsuits. It's going to get crazy.
Back up. No, here's what you did. Let me help you.
Wow.
You sent a text. Text to all the people coming to the retreat. Straight up, he says in the text to all these pastors who I didn't even know half of them.
Men and women. That's fine.
And he said, bring your bathing suits. We'll turn on the hot tub. It'll be a wild time.
That's what he said. Funny and just doing that.
He thought it was funny, and I found out.
It will not be wild.
I was in the group text.
We will not be wearing bathing suits.
Oh my gosh, that is not going to happen. I promise you.
She said nobody wants to see that. That's what she said.
Yeah, it was.
You're good at that. You always are thinking this stuff about they will love this. This is going to work for the group that's coming.
I kind of just love anticipating what people would make them feel comfortable. Like it's fun. It's not a game in a weird way. It's more like it's just very challenging to me and fun to think about what would they like, what would make them feel special, what do they what would be a good break for them if they're leaving their kids? You know, knowing, are you leaving little kids? Are you older and you want to be around whatever age they're at.
You're so good at it. When we get in the car and we're headed somewhere, you know what she does? She quizzes me. What are their kids' names?
True. I do.
What's her name? What do they do? Remember last time we were with them?
I'm not sure I talk like that, but I do ask those
questions.
questions.
In my mind, that's how you talk.
Isn't that funny how everybody has a voice for their spouse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Josh hates the voice.
When Scott does my voice, I always tell him
about quit his day job. 5 voices for Jenni. That's how
Depends on what's going on.
Shut up.
That is probably a voice.
Quit doing that. You're irritating. That's embarrassing.
I tell Jenni, I'm like, you can't use the same voice for me and your dad and your brother. And, you gotta have variety.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, so she'll do that and gets me, ready to love on people. And it's just natural. I always joke. I even went to our counselor and I said, listen, you got to help my wife and me because we're having a hard time. He said, okay, what's it this time?
But no, when this is serious, you really were saying that it was annoying to you.
I am. This is no joke. I'm saying.
You weren't joking.
I am tired of coming home and there's people in my home that are supposed to be doing work, but they ain't working. They're sitting for 30 minutes talking to Jenni about their spouse who's having a surgery or how they have back problems or how cancer runs in their family or how their kids are sick or how they have a kid doing that. Or where they're going to school. I'm telling you,
it came up
it's
in
about
conversation
half the time.
because I was saying to you, you didn't even ask them about blah, blah, blah. All you did was just walk by and say, hey. That's why, because we had gotten in a fight about it.
As a plumber at our house, not for me to have a conversation with them. I came home from doing ministry, and now I'm not there for ministry. Like this.
He was using air quotes for those who are listening.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So you were annoyed because you and I were fighting about this all the time.
He goes, well, describe what you're talking. I said, well, like this week, I come home. There's a guy working out building a pergola for us, and he's looking, not even working. He's looking down from the ladder talking to her about all these things about his family. And I'm going, it went on for like 20 minutes. And I'm saying, let's eat dinner. Let's go, And he goes, man, that's terrible. That's sad. And I go, I know. Tell her. And he says, no, I'm talking about how sad it is that so many people don't have anybody to talk to that will listen to them. That if someone really says, hey, could I get you something to drink? How are things going? And doesn't walk away, but actually stands there, they'll actually open up everything about their life, show pictures, talk about everything, because they literally don't have one person in their life who will listen to them. And I said, well, Jenni's got a sign on her head that just reads, talk to me, I care. Because everyone opens up their whole life. I'm telling you, I came home 2 days, when we left to come here, right before we left, she was on the phone with somebody. And when I walked in, she goes like this, like she sticks her finger up to say, just go to the other room like this. You know what it is? It's people that work with her. There's all kinds of things. You go get your hair done. You can say the
girl who puts
your
my lashes on.
Yeah,
you can say that. It's all right.
Well, all this. Well, I didn't want to, anyway.
She's talking about
stuff. Talking about her life.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the appointment. It had to do with, can I talk to you about something? Because she loves people. That is the heart she has, and that's the heart I want to have, but I don't have it naturally. So I've had to build practices in my life to help me to do that.
Yeah.
But she is constantly just thinking about how to help people, how to bless people. When we go to a restaurant, we're going to go eat after this, okay?
Yeah.
When we go eat after this, you know what the first thing she's going to think when we sit down to eat? What do they have here that's gluten-free and dairy-free? You know why? Not because she needs it. I do.
Right.
But and it's not even like, well, I guess it is because I'm incompetent and I need her help. But really what she's thinking is, I hope this is a good place for him and that we can get something for him.
Right.
She's constantly thinking that.
So Scott, you said how you're not naturally bent that way. For people listening, maybe who, relate to you in that, what is one easy system or something that you implemented to be more like Jenni to other people?
So,
very sweet.
Exactly.
My face is getting all red. I feel my cheeks hot.
100% is like one of them is like how she's trying to help me to, do you remember their names? Do you know how important, when people walk up to me and they know my name, that's a big deal.
Right.
And I know that. And guess what? My heart wants to know their name, but I'm not as good as she remembers everybody's. So you know what I do? Today I met pastors. You know what I did immediately? That guy caught me in the bathroom. He goes, I've done that before, tried to hide from people. I'm not hiding. I'm sitting by the sink. I just washed my hand and I'm typing things up. He said, sure you are. I said, you know what I'm doing? My wife will remember every person and every conversation in that room we just had. I won't. So right now I'm writing down the name of that person I just talked to and their phone number, their phone in my contact, and I'm writing down their spouse's name, their kids' names, and I'm writing down what we just talked about so that if they call me or when I call them, it comes up on my screen. Because there's nothing that frustrates a person who really loves but isn't really built that way. That when it comes up on my phone, it says this person's name. And I go, if there are names in my phone, I should know them.
Right.
But I can't place this.
Right. So you put it down on the notes.
And so I put it in the contact, not in the notes. I put it up there where it says business, you know, the little third line, their first name, last name in a line.
So that comes up.
I do it so that when it comes on my phone, it says their wife's name. So when I answer, I say, what's up, Ron? How's Denise? They're going, how the world? I don't remember his wife's name. You get it? And they go, in their mind, either they say, and let me tell you, it's 50-50, that they'll literally go, how do you remember all that? I said, what do you mean? You're important, dude. Of course I want to know. Of course I would remember this.
Yeah.
Get it? But it's because I had to put a tool together to help me to do what she naturally does.
That's when you got to the part of talking about people teasing you like, oh, you're being manipulative or whatever, using a tool and doing that. But it's not, because you really do want to remember that and do all that. And the minute you see the thing that jogs your memory, you do remember exactly what it is.
It's being intentional. Yeah. What I say is tools aren't manipulative, only hearts are. So if your heart's manipulative, then any tool you have is manipulative.
Right.
Sure.
But if your heart is to love, but you can't remember things, how loving is it that I will take time and go walk somewhere by myself and write it out right then, because I want to make sure I'm positioned to love that person as best as I can the next time. That's love. It just takes systems for me.
Yeah.
So part of it as a pastor or a person in ministry, one time this really hit me, and Jenni, probably one of the big, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, Jenni, one of the biggest times Jenni ever really helped me is we were at the kids' soccer practice, and they're down practicing soccer, and Jenni's down with all the, you put out your lawn chair and you're sitting there with all of them.
The boys were really little.
But I was up at the top by myself, and I was getting ready for Sunday's message, and I'm typing stuff, I'm reading stuff and doing this. And after about 45 minutes, she walked over, and as I saw her walking over, I'm going, oh, great, what did I not do? Good going, Dylan, way to go, on there, good score. I tried to say things. I said, I see him. And she comes over and she goes, what you doing? I said, oh, just trying to maximize my time. I'm see them, but I'm also trying to give them she said, well, maybe in a minute you could come down and sit with us down there with everybody else. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. And I said, like what? Well, like one of the people down there lost their job. Another one, they're getting a divorce, and they were telling me about it. Another one, their other son is in trouble, and they're talking about all that down there. And there's a lot of hurt and a lot of stuff going on that you and I could be down there helping them with. And literally, here's what I said. I said, they don't go to our church.
And then I didn't talk so nice after that.
No, then she
I
went
didn't
to
stay in
another
my
voice.
nice voice.
No, she goes,
there was another voice that came out.
So if they don't go to our church, then they don't count, or they're not of value to God. Okay, will you just continue working on your message instead of living it? And I'll go back down there. And she flipped her hair around and goes,
I think I would have said very similar.
I guarantee you I said those things, and not in that weird
I know, but
voice.
But that voice was really powerful, flipping. Everyone who's listening right now saw it, and it was powerful. Wow. Anyway,
I did
you
say
see how that
though.
moment, and you know what's so convicting to me? What do I mean?
I think it was more like I called you names, and it wasn't very nice.
Okay, well, the point is it really impacted me, where I'm going, what am I thinking?
Right.
They don't go to our church? What is that? Talk about Pharisee. Talk about a religious spirit. Talk about not loving like Jesus. And you know what? I stopped doing that. And I went down and I started loving those people and building. And can I tell you, I was intimidated by them because I grew up in a church bubble. Everybody around me, I didn't grow up with people who did this and did that and talk like this and act like that and go these places.
Right.
So
it really was intimidating for you. Even as the boys got older, and then now you're in with all these dads that probably played sports and did all that, and you played sports and did stuff, but it was just a whole
I played sports but never got to play. That's what she was trying to say.
Watched sports on the team.
No, I'm not saying
From
you
the
didn't.
bench.
No, I was being serious, saying that as
She's
as
saying
they
that
got
because
older,
she was a college athlete and got a college scholarship to play
don't get into
volleyball.
that.
Wow.
Were you a
I feel like
setter,
we should
Jenni,
release
or,
some game tape or something.
Played in the back.
What?
Played in the back row, yeah.
Were you like
Volleyball.
libero? Or
don't even know
like
what that
just
means.
back, like that's
in the
just
back,
a back row
yeah.
player?
Yeah, that shows how long ago I played that. I don't even know that term. Yeah.
Anyway,
I bet you were.
The point is, I it changed in me that day. And guess what? We probably saw, I don't know, a couple of dozen of those people get saved.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And started coming to our small group and growing. Their kids got saved. Listen, this is so crazy. We're sitting at home Wednesday night.
Yeah, this was just, I was going to say, like 3 days ago.
Tell them about it.
Yeah, 3 days ago, Dylan FaceTimed, and he said, "You are never going to believe this." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Go get Dad." And he's FaceTiming me. They were up at the church, and we were getting ready to come up here. So I was packing, doing all that stuff. And so I'm like, "What?" And he shows me a picture, shows me the thing, and puts the camera on, and it's his friend from when they were 12 years old. And he had a little girl, and Dylan just had a little girl, and they were both ended up seeing each other at church. And so it was a picture of Dylan and his friend from when they were 12 holding their little girls together.
Wow.
And it was so amazing when of course we were so excited to see him because this kid stayed with us a lot when he was in junior high, just had a lot of family stuff going on, stayed with us most of junior high and kind of early high school. And
so here's a kid that we were with their family, ministering to them, doing what we're talking about. This is that team. This is those people, right?
Yeah, it was.
And here we are, however long, 20 years later, 18, 15, whatever it is.
15 years later.
And he's got a little girl. He just got baptized 3 weeks ago at the church.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're not even the pastor anymore, but he's coming because he knows Dylan all
really
this.
cool.
It's just amazing how those seeds are still bearing fruit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that plays off perfectly into, I think for people listening that maybe are like, well, what do you mean by spiritual fathering and mothering? I think even what you just described is a huge part of it, which isn't, I don't want to confuse it with discipleship. Like, oh, it's just meeting and teaching people the Bible. Like you took this kid in, like you just loved him. You
to me,
gave
mothering
him.
and fathering is so different than discipleship because there's not necessarily an agenda.
Right.
You know, when I'm parenting my kids, I'm loving them when they're mad. I'm loving them when they're happy. I'm loving them when things are good. I'm loving them when things are bad. It's more just living life with them, you know? I mean, doing formal teaching and doing all that stuff isn't anything that I've ever really been like, oh yeah, that's what I'm really good at. I think more just living life with people and doing that.
Yeah.
So we lived life with those families no matter what they were in. We lived life with these kids when they were in that phase. So now, like, you know, this guy stayed with us for a long time. And then when he started doing stuff that we were not okay with, he couldn't stay with us all the time. So, you know, there were years
But it didn't mean he didn't come over. He just didn't live with us because he
didn't
felt
stay with
bad.
us. Yeah, he did that.
I'm not going to go live over there and I'm doing
can't.
this and doing that, you know.
But then when we see him, you know, we've seen him a couple times at church. He's been coming a lot more. We've been gone, so we haven't seen him as much. But it's amazing to think that he's there and that we would, you know, that we've been able to just live life with them. So I think spiritual parenting is about helping them all the way around, not necessarily just completing a course and now we're done and here's your certificate and now we're done, you know. It's more just living life with people.
Yeah. Because I bet even just living around you, he watched, maybe he didn't realize it was spiritual, or anyone, as they're around you, they're seeing Jesus through how you talk, how you act.
So many of those kids would tell us, I've never seen family like how y'all do family.
Yeah.
We've never sat around a table and talked like this or been like this. My mom and dad don't act like your mom and dad or you know, how it's all connected, how there's loving, how there's a stability, how they'd even talk about walking into our house and go, I just don't know anywhere that feels like this. Even the work people who come to our house, part of it is we pray over our house and everything, just that Lord, let it be that everybody walks in here, senses your presence, your peace, your love. And so I think a lot of that has to do with Jenni. And I try to just follow along on that. And I'm downplaying it somewhat because I think I have grown in my heart.
Yeah, of course.
Well, part of it is a lot of people would say, Scott, you're so loving. You care about people. Like, I don't know all this. Well, a lot of that has to do with the Holy Spirit's work in me and Jenni helping me. And now I've become that. But I talk that way because there's so many people who say, I'm not an extrovert. I can't do that. I can't be a loving person like that. That's not my personality. It has nothing to do with your personality.
Well, you're trying to prove the point that you learned that more. It didn't just come natural for you. So that is true. It didn't come as natural for you. But now you've gotten really good at it.
Yeah.
Well, and I would even say me personally getting to know you guys, and I think I told Scott, like, for you to just like look at me like with eye contact and be like, I'm so proud of you and who you are. Like at first I would just look away like, okay, thanks. Oh, move on.
Because it feels awkward almost.
It does. If you're not used to that level of family, like of loving one another with that unconditional love and just being proud. And I think I want to, as we end, I want to just clarify for some people listening. Yeah, that spiritual mothering and fathering. Do you have to be an actual parent, like a biological parent, to do that?
No, I think I always am telling people, because first thing is people go, well, I'm not old enough to be a spiritual father or a spiritual mother. And I always am telling people, fathering and mothering isn't an age, it's a heart. Right. It's that I care about other people and them winning more than I do about me winning or using them for me to win. You know, I want to help you win. I want to help you. I want to affirm who I see in you as God. And by the way, when the whole deal of I look at you in their eyes and doing that, you know, it's not in a weird way. It's doing that. But when I do it, what I'm trying to do is not even compliment you. I'm trying to affirm the character of God I see in you. That's a deeper thing that a spiritual father and mother will do. I'm not trying to comment like, you're right, Jenni's got great shoe game, okay? But that wouldn't be a comment that's going to be, but affirming the way she loves people, that goes to a deep, that's what you're doing on that. So to me, fathering and mothering has to do with connecting with people, not using them. That means I love you with no strings attached, and all I want you to do is feel from me the love of God about your greatness.
Yeah. Right.
And I think loving them where they're at.
Loving them where they're at.
I think it's loving them where they're at and not loving them, you know, for what they can do for you, or well, if you're at this level, I can love you this much, but loving them where they're at.
Yeah.
Or that love is
like you would do
based
for
upon
your own
behavior.
kids.
Right.
I mean, like you would do for your own kids. I mean, what we expected out of our kids and what we were walking through with our kids when they were in junior high is very different than what we're walking through with them now or doing now. So I think just having no expectations for them to perform for us, but we're just going to love them where they're at, and then help them and challenge them and, you know, give them advice when it's appropriate and all that.
Yeah.
I think that's what we love so much about you guys. And Pastor Scott, I know you're a person of tremendous influence. Like, you carry authority in a lot of people's lives. But I've not seen many leaders who have reached that point where they're willing to take all of that, consolidate it, and then use it to elevate others. A lot of people just try to keep building their own, platform, and you've just taken it and pulled people in alongside of you and said, hey, I want you to go further than I was able to. And we're just drawn to leaders like that, and so we just deeply appreciate that heart and that you've leveraged your life to do that. And Jenni, I do think I don't know many people that cause me to feel as seen as you do.
Thank you.
Like, you can be in a house with 45 other people, and I bet everybody walks out of that house feeling like, I had a moment where Jenni saw me. She spoke into my heart. Like, she took notice of me.
Thanks.
And it's legit. It's not just like, oh, hey, so glad you're here. But it's like, no, you grab somebody by the arm, you look them in the eye, like you express a love for them. And
thank you.
So it's not just a message, and it's not just like, oh, this is what we do. And it's this cutesy thing that we're building. It's something that you guys have embodied. And so we're so grateful for it. And we want people to know about it. So we want people to know about like rsgleaders.com. If you want to hear more about it, we want people to know about the book Impact, the book Identity.
So many books by Pastor Scott Wilson.
If you look up Pastor Scott Wilson, you're going to find the books.
They're great books. It's great stuff.
And
but when we talk about intentionality with people, the Impact book, is that even out?
Impact?
Like,
No,
Identity is the one that just came out last week.
Yes.
So brand new.
Yes. So many. There's a parenting with purpose.
There is, yeah.
There's which one?
Sometimes Scott likes to play the game of see if you can name the books. I bet you can't even name all the books because people will say, "Oh, do you just love reading all Scott's books?" And I'm like, I live with Scott. I don't need to read his books.
The content.
So then we play the game of can you name the books? Yeah, it's
the
a funny
only
little
book
game
that I know that she read through was Impact because I talked about her so much in there. I said, you better read it. Because the whole part of relationship is about, and Jenni taught me this, and Jenni said
I read it because
this.
I was trying to make sure the stories were right.
That's what I said. You got to make sure they're right.
Oh, please say
Otherwise,
that the right
they're just
way.
going to be the way I think they are.
Right, right.
Yeah.
At least you can't.
And we all know that could be alarming.
Tone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Yes.
To those that have listened to our podcast, they know that Jenaye has one version of our dating history, and I have one version of our dating history.
Which
and
one
hers
is accurate? Because I have a journal.
Yes. Hers is the
Yes.
accurate version. So
yeah, so we
That's
feel you
funny.
on that.
That's
there's
really
some
funny.
great resources though that people can learn and grow in this. And you don't have to be in ministry to do this. You don't have to be vocational. This is just being a Christian, period. Because I even think of what Josh affirmed in you guys. It's not just because you're great people, which you are, but it's the Holy Spirit. You have to have humility to want to like even I'm looking at Mitch and T and Remy to say to them, like, I want you to do better things than we do. Like that goes against all your flesh. I mean, that goes against what the world would say, that goes against and truly mean it. So I think the power of the Holy Spirit working through you guys is just magnificent.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Thank you guys. We love you.
I know. It's been so great to be
too.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so grateful for you guys. Everybody listening, if you are just meeting Scott and Jenni for the first time in this podcast, they have already impacted your life, whether you know it or not, because they've impacted us in such a real way. And so we're just grateful that you came all the way to North Dakota.
Yeah. So do we give the right information? So. RSG Leaders?
Sure, rsgleaders.com. And then those who might want to look more into the spiritual fathering is 415leaders.com. And so, but if you go to scottwilsonleaders.com, then it has a free book. You can get the Impact book for free and just send it to you, and we'd love to do that.
Right.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Such a great application. Well, thank you for listening into this episode today. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do leave us a review, like and share it if you think it would encourage someone. So we're excited for the next episode.
Thanks for joining.